It's day 5 of the partial government shutdown over border wall funding, and both sides are refusing to budge. President Trump not backing down. Here's what the president said just hours ago in Iraq.
How long do you think the shutdown will last, Mr. President?
Whatever it takes. I mean, we're going to have a wall. We're going to have safety. We need safety for our country, even from this standpoint. We have terrorists coming in through the southern border. Can we have some drones? Can we have technology? Technology is bells and whistles. You have to have a wall. You have to have protection. So when you say how long is it going to take, when are they going to say that we need border security? When are the Democrats going to say? Don't forget, the Democrats all agreed that you need a wall until I wanted it.
House Minority Leader and soon-to-be Speaker Nancy Pelosi is pushing back against the president, claiming, quote, he's using scare tactics that are not evidence-based, and it's wrong. Former acting ICE Director Thomas Homan is responding to Pelosi by saying she's the one who has it all wrong.
She's 100% wrong, so let me educate Ms. Pelosi. As far as crime coming across the border, ICE arrested 138,000 criminals last year. These are people who entered the country illegally and committed a crime against the citizens of this country.
What kind of crime?
Over 2,000 homicides, over 11,000 weapon violations, over 11,000, almost 12,000 sexual assault crimes, sexual crimes. So crime does come across that border. They just didn't miraculously appear in the United States to enter the country illegally.
You know, my take on this is a huge opportunity to do comprehensive immigration reform. Both sides are dug in on positions I think don't make a lot of sense for the country and indeed even their political positions. Wouldn't it make sense to do a wall, enhanced border security, a fence, as the president talked about, in exchange for a path to citizenship for the Dreamers and some right for those 10 or 11 million who are here illegally to stay? Doesn't that make sense, Dana?
Well, I think so, but I do want to defer to Katie, who was there for that interview this morning and was from Arizona. I mean, we've talked about comprehensive immigration reform for years, over 3 different presidents.
Doesn't make it wrong.
I agree.
Here's the problem with comprehensive immigration reform is it's too big of a project to do when you have a serious crisis at the border at this point in time. Border security is different than amnesty for millions of people who are either here illegally or who brought their children over when they were children without having gone through the proper process for citizenship. And so when the president talks about wanting a wall or a barrier, he's correct when he says that where we built these things in Yuma, Arizona, for example, in places in El Paso and San Diego, the traffic there has stopped. And if you look at the criminal element that is bringing these children and these people up through Mexico and using them as human shields to get into the country, you have to take a look at the real issue of the law being changed there. And I've always said that open borders are inhumane borders. You had the report today of the second child dying while in Border Patrol custody. That is not a result of Border Patrol. That is a result of sick kids showing up at the border and the United States giving them care that they have not seen for 2,000 miles along their journey. And so it complicates things enormously when you throw in comprehensive immigration reform when the president is trying to solve a problem that is an emergency right now.
Look, I agree with Katie, but I think you're an optimist. But you're not where your party is right now.
I know.
You're very reasonable. But as it relates to your party, it's become an open borders party. And they have gone from wanting to ban ICE to, and let me say this, the president tried to move on this last week, and he got a major blowback. And I said it last week. The president, if he wants to lose his base, this was the moment that he was going to lose his base because he was caving. And so now the president is going to the opposite direction and saying, look, I can't budge on this. I tried to go with my people with this. I tried to get some type of reasonable approach. They're not having it. And so the Democrats, you got to give me some wiggle room right here. What you guys want to put on the table is let's just talk about DACA. Well, that doesn't solve the problem that's on the border. And we went through this with Ronald Reagan before where we gave you amnesty and said, hey, you're going to get border security. And it never came. And so the American people just aren't going to go for it.
Tom, am I off base?
Well, where you were off base was adding those 10 or 11 million. That's, if he wants to throw DACA into some deal, I think people would go for it, but they're not going to go with the broad amnesty.
The deal in 2013 included the 10 or 11 million. It got 68 votes in the Senate. That's why I said
DACA is more complicated than just giving citizenship to people who were brought here as children from Mexico or Central America, because then the question is, well, if their parents are still in the country illegally, do they then get to stay? It's a complicated issue of family units and whether they get to stay. It's not just a simple piece of legislation. There are serious questions surrounding how that gets done. But when it comes to the president and what they have offered, incoming Chief of Staff Mick Mulvaney was on Fox News Sunday over the weekend, and he actually said that they've come down from their $5.7 billion
we don't know how far.
They did not say what the number was, but Democrats, they're hoping, will come to some center when it comes to the funding. And we're talking about maybe, $3 billion here?
Yeah, I think we're talking
for political
about
reasons
fundamental political positioning.
They don't like the optics of the wall. That's what it is. They don't like
I agree with that.
Or the sound of it, even.
They know that, but the president has evolved. We know you're not going to just get a physical wall on all aspects of the border. They've called it the border wall system. He's talking about adding technology to it. But the symbolic measure of the president having accomplishment when it comes to the wall is what Democrats are against.
Right, and I'm saying that's exactly right. There has to be a compromise around a fence, enhanced border security, and some path to citizenship for the DACA residents, notwithstanding the issues.
But that's a separate issue. I don't understand why Democrats keep lumping it together. There's border security, and then that's taking care of the people that are already here. But you can't talk about fixing a problem. Fixing a problem with the kids that are here that have nothing to do with the border itself.
I think that Democrats, I think if Barack Obama would have decided to build a wall to stop an influx of illegal immigration, the Democrats would have gone for it.
Totally.
We have seen gross hypocrisy between what Barack Obama did on this issue and what Trump
they should hammer that a little bit more. I mean, because the Democrats did vote for border security, fencing, things that look like a wall. But it's not just it's a symbolism of the wall. So a lot of this is a political symbolism fight. The other thing is the shutdown so far has been a little bit symbolic. Now, if you're one of the 900,000 who's being furloughed, that's important. That is a big deal to you, and I hope they can take comfort in the fact that the government has done back pay for them. But the first real day of the shutdown is actually today, because the president gave Christmas Eve as a holiday as well. So this is actually the first real day. We'll see what sort of pain comes. But I think they end up at like 3.3 billion.
Quickly, isn't this ridiculous, the whole thing?
Yes.
The shutdown, the fight, all of this. Isn't this the worst?
Well, I don't know. I don't know if it's ridiculous. I don't think it's bad for the president to throw a temper tantrum and say, give me my $5 billion or you're not going to get your government back. I think to me, to me,
it's a bad mistake politically and substantively.
Well, we'll see.
Okay.
We will see.
You win.
All right.
Day 6 of the shutdown with no end in sight. So which side is winning the optics battle? Let's talk to two people who know. Joining us now, Doug Schoen, a Fox News contributor and former advisor to President Bill Clinton, and Rachel Duffy, also a Fox News contributor. Welcome to you both.
Thank you, Rick.
Thank you.
So, Rachel, ladies first. It seems like both sides are suffering here so far.
Right. Both sides are suffering, but what's interesting to me is that what's being lost in all of this, in the deal that could possibly be made, are the DACA recipients, a group that the Democrats have claimed to be supporting and fighting for so long. In fact, if you remember, Doug, last year around this time, Representative Gutierrez said, I'll build that wall if you help me,
I would do the same thing now.
Well, why aren't the Democrats doing that? It's very interesting that it's not just the Democrats, but even the Hispanic activist groups that claim to represent the Hispanics aren't putting pressure on the Democrats to make a deal.
I can tell you why. The Democrats believe, and I think there's some poll evidence to support, that they have leverage now. And they believe that they can win the fight. To the Democrats, it is a back off because he had been talking a wall built by Mexico. Now it's a wall built by us, or a fence or slats or whatever it's going to be.
But how can Democrats who supported a barrier of some kind in the past now say they don't support it at all?
Well, that was then, this is now. And frankly, with the Democratic control of the House, I think there is not going to be a wall. There is no real support in the party for a wall. There is support
There never was.
for DACA and a pathway to citizenship.
They used to say, yeah, we're for, border security, we're for a wall.
They
but
all
they
voted
actually,
for it.
They never really meant it. They never really meant it.
Well, they voted for it, 2013, 68 votes.
The party is the party of Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez.
Oh, come on. Be fair. I'm not Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez.
But you're an outlier in the party.
No, I'm not.
Nancy
I'm a
Pelosi, you're an outlier in the party, and the party belongs to the progressive wing, and Nancy Pelosi is playing to that wing. She cares more about getting that speakership than she cares about securing our border.
She said no to that group. No impeachment, no elimination of ICE. Nancy Pelosi, I think, has been responsible.
Well, let's talk about this new Democratic House that's coming in. The Wall Street Journal today said that this shutdown could ruin the nation's introduction to the Democratic House. It's more obstructionism, hyper-partisanship, and political games and less progress for America.
Well, I think that's what the Wall Street Journal says, but with President Trump at about a 40 to 42% approval, having lost 40 seats, largely in states he won in 2016 that he needs in 2020, the Democrats have calculated that this is a fight they can and will win.
I think you're onto something. I think there's miscalculation. They also thought they were going to fight and win on Brett Kavanaugh. I think the American people are watching this. First of all, they're not as afraid of a shutdown as they used to be, because they see the government continues, to operate. It's not as big of a threat as they used to think it was. So now they're going to look at this and go, who really cares about America's security? Who really cares about the DACA recipients? And I think this is a miscalculation.
Well, I don't think the Republicans care about the DACA recipients.
Absolutely, they
Rachel,
do.
if I can get a word in, I do believe we both would agree, and I think it would be good for our colleagues in Washington to hear, that if we did a deal, if we resurrected the compromise DACA for a wall, I'd be for it. I think you'd be for it. I think the American people would be for it.
Absolutely.
As the clock ticks, and we've talked about this, as the clock ticks, the pressure builds. And of course there's pressure on the president, but there's pressure on Congress too.
Absolutely.
And you have hundreds of thousands of federal employees who won't be collecting paychecks, and their voters and their family vote, and this is something that's going to hurt American people over time.
You're absolutely right. And again, and the answer for the president, by the way, is to do an Oval Office address. The president needs to make the case to the American people, and I don't think doing it on Twitter is enough. He actually needs to use the office of the presidency to make this case.
And say what?
And explain why this is so important. Listen,
but he's been doing that since the campaign.
No. But he needs to really position where they're at. There needs to be an Oval Office.
You can do border security without a wall.
Oh, come on!
Sure, you can.
The Democrats are not serious about it,
we're not going to get a wall. It's not going to happen. We will have.
Doug, do you have fences around your house?
Exactly.
I
sure do.
Okay, fences work. Would you agree fences work?
Yeah, but a fence is not a wall. And with Nancy Pelosi as Speaker, I can tell you there's not going to be a wall.
Wow. Well,
and I think there'll be a political price to pay for that.
I have a feeling we're going to be
American
talking
people
about this more.
I think we will.
Rick, my husband and I were in Walmart and Sam's Club, over the holiday, and he was stopped and he's a member of Congress, as you know. He was stopped every few feet by people saying, "Keep fighting for the wall." There are
Those
a lot
are mostly
of people.
Republicans.
No.
Democrats and independents don't take that position.
Doug, we got to leave it there.
Thank you, Rick.
Democrats don't shop at Sam's Club?
No, I said they don't want a wall. They do shop at Sam's Club.
They'll keep
so
talking.
do I.
They'll keep
I've got
talking.
my card in my pocket.